Dun, dun. Boom! Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is Friday night at 9 p.m. Pacific Daylight Savings Time. It is time for another Film Geek Primer, but this week, yes, a special Film Geek Primer. This week we're going to try reviewing a film, simply one film that was selected for us to watch last week, which was The Dogs of War, 1981, with Christopher Walken, Tom Berenger, and a slew of walk-on performances by actors to be named later. But let's get into the show really quick first. Actually, Shu, go ahead and give us a little theme. Nothing but passion. Nothing but passion. I gotta love it.
I kind of deteriorated down the stretch.
A little bit, yeah. You kind of blew a sour note there, and everything started falling apart.
Yeah, which would suggest that there was actually a portion of it that was decent.
No. Start off strong.
I would say it was entirely the same throughout.
That's probably a fair review.
Again, though, this is because Dub has not been studying the custodial arts as some of us have through time. Because my double major was in custodial arts and custodial arts.
Yeah.
I'm graduated.
Yeah.
I'm Professor Emeritus, so I'm certainly up to speed.
Nice. All right, so of course with us as always, or most of the time, Shu. Shu, how are you?
Yeah, I'm great.
Good. Glad to hear it. Dub is with us.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, we got that. We have proof. Tremendo.
Hello, howdy.
Excellent. And finally, Warren.
Hey.
Wow. Hey.
Hello.
Greetings. How goes it?
Goes good.
Good. And of course, I'm your host, John Santo. Not been around for a bit, but that's okay. We do our thing. So, guys, let's just, dive right in, head first. Everybody was assigned to watch Dogs of War, streaming now on the Netflix. And everybody actually did the homework. I'm very happy with that. That's very exciting.
Right, I'm very surprised.
Homework.
What's that?
I'm very surprised we all did it.
Okay, Warren, you go first.
I just said my dog ate my homework. Forget it. It was funny 3 minutes ago. Never mind.
No, it wasn't.
And of course,
Yeah, come on.
Aaron.
What inadvertently happened was way funnier than anything we could have come up with.
Yeah. So they finish each other's sentences. It's weird. They're like the twins from G.I. Joe.
Like your brother.
No, the Corsican brothers. From the Cheech and Chong movie, the Corsican brothers.
Yeah.
Not to be confused with the actual Corsican brothers.
Or any two guys from Corsica.
Right.
There's a lot of guys there that have brothers. I just didn't want to confuse them.
Okay, so I'll tell you what. So let's everybody. Let's first, just without saying anything about the film, let's start off with a 1 through 10 ranking. Just where would it fall on your scale after watching the movie? Now, quickly, Shu, you and I watched this last Friday night, right?
Right.
And
because it's an indication of what lack of life we have.
Yeah.
You happen to be watching it on a Friday night voluntarily, and after we talked on last Friday night's Film Geek Primer, I popped it on and watched it off Netflix shortly thereafter.
And we were texting back and forth a little bit about that. So, Dub, when did you watch it?
I watched the first part a few days ago, and then I finished it this evening.
All right. Tremendo?
I think I watched it 15 years ago during the old Casa Video days on the videotape. And so I just finished watching it about an hour ago, rewatching it for the second time.
All right, excellent. Warren?
I watched it on Wednesday night.
Wow. Okay. So this is cool. All right. So we've got we've got Shu and I have had a little more time to let stuff sink in. The other guys are a little more fresh. Warren's right in the middle there. So we've got a variation of opinions. That's going to have no effect on any of this. I just like throwing that shit out. So Dub, really quick. 1 through 10. Give me a number.
Working on like a strict bell curve here. I'm going to go with a 6.
Okay.
It wasn't right down the middle 5. It was a little bit better than that, but I didn't think it was anything extra special. But it doesn't dip any lower than that, because it was very professionally done. But
Fair enough.
number
Okay.
is 6.
Number 6. T, give us a number.
I'll give it a 7. It's just for Christopher Walken, and I think it's like Dub said, it's solid work. But I give it an extra point because of Walken.
Okay. All right.
Walken's mere presence.
Fair enough. Shu.
I think 7 is solid.
7. All right.
Yeah.
Warren.
Yeah, I mean, I think 7, but I guess when we go into it more, I could probably kind of give up.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Awkwardly enough, I'm gonna have to go highest on this one. I'm probably gonna go with maybe a 7.5, close to an 8. Not exactly an 8, but it's definitely in the B- C+ range for me.
See, but you completely cheated because you went with a 7.5. Now I could have gone 7.6 or something like that, but no, you said 1 to 10, pick a number. I picked a number.
Oh, fair enough.
7.
Fair enough. Okay, then you're right. Then I'll straight up. I'm just gonna go with an 8. Okay? If we
You rounded up. Well done.
I'll just go with an 8.
Way to cave, John.
Thanks. I know. What can I say? I waffled already.
I want to get Professor Santos' class.
Yes. I got an F, but he gave me a C.
For effort.
Yeah, exactly. He likes my passion. And I give a great hand job. What? Okay. Who wants to? Really quick. So, the film Christopher Walken stars as Jamie Shannon, who is a mercenary for hire, who is originally hired to go into a I'm guessing fictional country in Africa.
You're guessing.
I'm guessing.
You're guessing, yeah.
To first survey what's going on and see if it's possible for a coup to take place, so the American government can put a new dictator that they can control into power. And then, of course, it goes from there into Walken assembling a team to then perform the coup and overthrow the government. Along the way, of course, he has his team with him. The main guy, Drew, is played by Tom Berenger, a young Tom Berenger. Tom Berenger gets better looking as he gets older in my book. I just want to throw that out there.
Yeah.
Colin Blakely as North. Hugh Milius is Endine. And Paul Freeman, Belloc from Raiders of the Lost Ark.
That's who that was.
As Derek, yeah. And actually, I have another quick little Raiders of the Lost Ark thing to throw out here. And I have a feeling, because I'm guessing they may have been shot very close together or back to back even. George Harris plays Colonel Bobby, the gentleman who's going to replace the dictator in charge. He played Katanga, the captain of the ship.
Captain, yeah.
And then,
oh wow.
And then the African American, or possibly African British, mercenary leader of the small group that they take in was the
Jinju.
Chocolate. He was Chocolate Moose in Top Secret, but he was also the captain's guy in Raiders of the Lost Ark. He says, "I found him, sir. Where? There." And he's that dude as well. And I'm willing to bet the ship may actually have been the same ship from Raiders of the Lost Ark.
I'm sorry. Hold on a second. That's the same guy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ship captain in Raiders?
Yeah.
No. Katanga in Raiders was the guy that is going to be the new dictator.
Yeah, that I got, but he was also Chocolate Moose?
No.
Chocolate Moose.
Go ahead. You explain no more.
Chocolate Moose was remember the group of.
No, I remember from Top Secret.
No. But in Dogs of War, there was a group of mercenaries that came on that the white mercenaries thought were sort of, these guys are going to suck. Well, they had a leader, right?
Yes. No,
that was Chocolate Moose.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Wow.
Wow.
And he was also the second in command or whatever from Raiders of the Lost Ark. And so I have a feeling there was probably some similar casting going back and forth there. And I think Susie Figgis was one of the casting agents actually on that one.
It's a
anyway,
action movie.
It also has a couple interesting what we would now call cameos, but it had Jim Broadbent, Oscar winner Jim Broadbent, played a cameraman for a British reporting team in it, and he's dressed like Gilligan. He's got the red shirt with the Gilligan hat.
That guy looks familiar.
Yeah. And then, oh my God, who else was in there? Victoria Tennant ex-Steve Martin, who was also in All of Me and a couple other films during the 80s. She was a dinner guest at one of Colonel Bobby's things.
Yeah, I saw that.
Al Bundy.
And yep, and then that was the other. Yeah, that was the other one. Why can't I think of his actual name here?
Ed O'Neill.
Thank you, Ed O'Neill. Ed O'Neill played. Who was he? He was just another reporter.
He was a mercenary who had to take care of his sister and her kid.
Oh, okay.
That was it.
So that was one of the things. Well, if you've got more trivia, but I thought
no.
I thought the Ed O'Neill divergence was interesting.
So tell me. Sorry, so Deb, let's start with you. What worked for you? What didn't?
I think what worked for me were the moments when the movie was showing you the workaday life, in some ways, of a mercenary. But it didn't, for my money, it didn't quite get dark enough. And one of the things that was interesting, it actually reminded me a little bit of, like it could have been a scene out of Asphalt Jungle, where they approach Ed O'Neill and they ask him to join the crew, right? They're going to go do this thing, and he backs out just because, you know, regular life is getting in the way. I liked that. I liked all the character moments, and I didn't care much for all the action moments.
Interesting. Okay.
So, you know, I was going to say I liked the stuff with the wife or girlfriend or whatever that was.
It was JoBeth Williams?
Yeah, it was JoBeth Williams. Yeah. I really enjoyed that they spent the time to show you how little this guy had in his life to make doing something like this worthwhile. Right. And how, you know, the torture and the rejection and just you show him they don't show very well, but they give good attention to the things that motivate him to do these actions, and it ends in a, you know, Rambo style explosion fest, but it was yeah, I think I'll break it down that way. I liked the character, and I didn't think the action was that compelling. It felt dated in a lot of ways.
Right. Well, you know, you got 35 years on it.
Sure.
But okay, so T, let's hear high points, low points.
Well, I didn't. There's nothing really obviously negative about it, because I kind of like movies in this style, the 70s style of almost like a crime procedural. So what I liked was all the details of laying out the mission. It's not just, you know, the Expendables type montage of cocking shotguns and loading up and pumping each other up and weightlifting and, you know, that kind of crap. But it's kind of like meeting with people, cutting deals. That part was really cool. And it's definitely from the novel. I'm sure that went into a lot of detail from the novel. I guess I thought it was a solid movie. What worked for me was Christopher Walken. I mean, that guy's just... And it's funny because last night I watched Seven Psychopaths. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like a
great film.
A recent work compared with a really early work.
Right.
Back to back, really, he's really still the same guy. You know, otherworldly, not quite there. You know, I almost see Dogs of War as a sequel to his character from Annie Hall. That is really, you know, he went from this, you know, quiet life in Connecticut, you know, and he became a mercenary.
Right.
So I really dug Christopher Walken. I mean, every moment he was on screen, I just couldn't stop watching him. So, but I thought it was, like I said, it's a solid war film. Captures that 70s style, and probably one of the last films of that era to have that kind of hard-edged Jack Cardiff photography.
Yep. Yeah, that was gorgeous.
And they had the really cool. My favorite shot in the film is when they storm the garrison, and they have a Charlie's Angels shot.
You have the silhouette of the flames behind him.
Yeah, I thought that was awesome.
Yeah.
That made the movie for me.
I took a screen grab of that when I was at work, and I was gonna post it, but I got too busy. Yeah. But I have that image.
And it was just so quick. The cutting was really quick, and most scenes really went on for very much long. Had a really quick pace. My only I guess, on a technical level, there's some sound issues. Lot of dubbing. So dubbing was very obvious in some scenes, and I don't know if you guys encountered the same problem, but it skipped a little. My stream skipped a little.
I was gonna ask that.
I can't blame the movie on that.
Yeah. What were we gonna ask? Doug?
Yeah, I thought it was solid. Really solid picture.
I was going to ask about the quality of the streaming, since we all probably experienced it through the same medium, but I had this issue where I watched it a little bit at work, and it was fine, and then I watched it at home, and it had this like stutter frame. It looked like it was having like a skip frame.
Middle of the film, when he comes back to New York. That's for about 10-15 minutes. It had this kind of strobing delayed effect, and I don't know if it was the print or the
Anyone else?
It might have been your connection. I didn't have that problem.
I had no problems with it whatsoever.
No, I agree with LT, because I had that issue at home when I was watching it, and my wife experienced it, and I eventually had to turn it off. It was unwatchable on my screen.
Interesting.
Where you are at your cable provider and how they are running, how they were streaming it to you.
Yeah, but my story is not.
Can you check my modem settings?
Because then I went to work and I watched it on my work screen, and it had the same issue. So 2 different locations had the same issue of the same chunk of film in the middle of the movie, and then eventually I resized the window, and it streamed fine. But I'm wondering if the timing was just fortuitous, to where I just happened to resize the window at the part where it cleared out.
Right, interesting. Yeah, no, I watched it on my big screen here, and I had no problems with it whatsoever all the way through. So let's move on to Shu. Let's hear what you got.
My recollection is that technically, from my end, it was generally fine too, all things considered. I thought it was a fairly clinical film. It was pretty much and I think it probably sticks with the close to the reference material in this regard. This is how a mercenary thing would be done: point A, point B, point C, point D, point E, and then it progresses from there. That it's kind of that. It's bookended by a couple action scenes. The action scenes, whereas Dub thought they were outdated, I enjoyed them from a nostalgic perspective. And another thing that I kind of feel like I almost feel like writing some sort of bloggy diatribe about the difference between a steel-related action scene from the 70s and 80s to a plastic-related CGI action scene from the modern era.
Right.
Where it seems like this is the type of thing where you had the feeling they actually went out there, they actually choreographed, they actually blew shit up.
Yeah.
And people were running through that, and every once in a while you'd get odd aspects of jangled metal that seem to be much more common in the construction from the 70s and 80s that's taken out of the equation to a large degree now, because everything is much more sterile, a lot more smooth. It's almost like there's a predictability in the way that things fall apart in action scenes today, which are, again, really well done, but computers play a lot of, CGI has a lot to do with that, and it almost felt like there was an unpredictability that took place that I really enjoyed. And that aspect of it, the scene at the beginning is great. Well, they're all getting on the plane, they're all trying to get away, there's shit blowing up all over the place around them, and you understand that they're setting off charges and the rest of it, but it looks pretty cool. And there's stuff blowing around, behind them as they're attempting to escape. It's like, yeah, I kind of like that. These are the types of action scenes that, for a variety of reasons, they just don't do anymore. Right. And I miss seeing those. Yeah. And when a movie like this pops up and an opportunity to watch it does, and those action scenes are in there, I find that I enjoy what they provide. It feels like there's a more hands-on element that involved everybody in the movie-making process, as opposed to an action scene that involved specific entities that seems to take place today. And that kind of stood out to me as being generally enjoyable. As far as, curiously, I feel like Dub and I watched a different film or got different things out of it. The character stuff there almost wasn't enough character stuff to me. And as a result of that lack of balance, it felt a little bit too clinical from a storytelling aspect and kind of bogged down in the middle. Whereas I kind of maybe would have appreciated a little bit more emotional contact from what was going on. But perhaps, in its defense, the point of the film is that he's pretty much a loner. He's got nothing else going on. There really isn't a whole heck of a lot of family contact, so you're not going to work a whole heck of a lot trying to make something happen that doesn't necessarily exist. What I'd be curious about from the source material is whether it ended like the book or if the movie has a happier sort of message ultimately at the end. Because in the backside, Walken becomes this jaded character who's just doing the job throughout the entire film because that's what he's been hired to do, even though he knows that the guys at the top are screwing him. But then it has this twist at the end where Walken turns out to be the good guy, and he even saves the girl. He even helps to get the right guy in charge. It kind of has this weird utopian quality about it, where Walken, instead of just being a guy who goes in, takes care of business, does his job, and leaves, has actually, you get the feeling, maybe made this country a better place for the people who are actually there. Which is sort of an odd kind of happy-feely conclusion to a film that doesn't have that aspect through a heck of a lot of it, and I'm fascinated as to whether the book or the source material ultimately goes in that direction as well.
Right. Okay, Warren, let's hear what you got.
I like this movie. I thought it as I'm watching it, I was like, this is an art movie at its heart. Like, it's an art house movie that this guy's trying to make. It's very, a lot of the shots were kind of like, they lasted a lot longer than a normal action movie would. There was way more talking. There was way more setup. It was just, the hero is more thoughtful. And I really enjoyed that. I thought, that's the kind of action movie that I enjoy, because it wasn't just your, shoot 'em up. That all being said, I think I kind of fall in Shu's corner where I didn't think that there was enough explaining his motivations or what made him do those things. And the stuff that was thrown in there, like with his wife or, with the girl that he likes in the country, it just felt like it was tacked on. It didn't really explain his motivations the way he sort of switched at the end. Shu said that the guys were screwing him over. That I don't actually believe. I believe that if he's a mercenary, he was getting $100,000. He was going into a tough job. I mean, that's what a mercenary does. It wasn't like he's some good guy to begin with.
That's fair enough.
So he was getting his money. He's being paid to put his life on the line.
He's doing what he was paid to do. Sure, that makes sense.
What he was paid to do. So it was like, if anything, I thought, well, why isn't he just doing what he was paid to do? I know he's changing it because, I feel like he was doing the wrong thing. The audience was feeling like he was doing the wrong thing. But I didn't find that there was anything really going on in the movie that made me feel like, how did he turn to realize he was doing the wrong thing?
Right.
It just sort of seemed to kind of come out without actually having any sort of moment that turned it. I mean, yeah, he wanted to be with his wife, and yeah, he wanted to do good things. But all that stuff had happened before. There was nothing really new that happened. I mean, if anything, he wanted to screw all those guys over anyway because, they kicked his ass when he was in the country, and, it just didn't feel, I just felt like there were some holes there. Like, I feel like the book probably explains it better as in most cases.
Sure.
I wonder if they cut out a love interest between him and the...
I feel like as I was watching the movie, I felt like I knew this was a book, and I was like, there's probably more in the book that explaining his motivation.
Well, I'm latching onto a word. Oh, go on.
I was going to say, I do love Christopher Walken. The one thing that bothered me about his performance was, like in the final battle scene when he's like doing mercenary stuff and he's zigzagging along in there. He didn't look like he was a mercenary or an army guy. He looked like he was like he had never done anything. Like he looked like a dancer, which is what he was.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
He looked graceful, and I was just watching him going, "Oh, come on, he's so dead. There's no way this guy." So it kind of threw me off every once. Like I'd watch him and he'd be like I was just like, that is how nerds run through a war.
The Darkman gun did all the work.
So,
the Darkman gun did all the work, so it makes anybody look awesome.
But and then like the battle at the end, I didn't feel like there was I was never worried about it. I guess you can say there was a couple moments of tension, but most of all, they just seemed to be this like precision, and they went in and they did it, and it was done. I was a little taken back by all that, but I enjoyed it because, like I said, it sort of felt like this art house movie. So I give it sort of like a freedom to do different things than what I would expect from maybe say a normal action movie.
Right. Excellent. So let me start with. There are a few different reasons why I really like this movie, and I also agree with. I have to agree with some of the characterization moments, though. I feel his. Here's the weird thing: is that I felt like they had to throw the Joe Beth Williams scene in there to make him human for no reason other than. Although it does take place after he has the weird Rocky doctor's moment where the doc's like, you fight one more time and you take a hit in the head, you're gonna die.
That was a great scene, actually.
It's a really good scene.
I like that scene.
Yeah, it's a solid scene, but at the same time, it's definitely one of those things where it's like, okay, he's not cut out for this shit anymore. So he goes to see Joe Beth Williams. He has this scene with her, which is. Now, and again, I don't know how predictable that type of scene would be in 80. Today, it's like, you know exactly where this is going. She's got a great life. You see the house. You see the husband. You see everything else. There's no way she's going to go away with Walken. But the relationship, and this is the relationship that I feel I just wanted a little bit more build on, was the relationship with the British reporter, because that, to me, is the reason why Walken turned. The death of that character was why, because Walken tracks down the guy that did it, leaves the body in the main senator's house or whoever it is that's been plotting this FBI, the CIA guy's house, who's been plotting this entire coup. So so it's like I know that you know, or you know that I know that you know that we know.
I know.
And so when
did that seemed like an exceptionally brutal torture, or was it just me?
No. It was definitely, and it's not. And it was, yeah, and they didn't really show much as you just hear. I mean, it's like the breaking, that whole process of watching the glass break and then taking a piece of glass and snapping it in half so it's like the right size to use.
Yeah. Brutal.
Yeah, and then you put it in his mouth. Yeah, and then it's like, and Berenger's great in that. See, Berenger's really good in the stateside stuff when he's got to be a real hard ass. But the two things that I really liked during the coup was when you finally see the dictator that's being that they're going to put out of commission. It's the first time you've seen him. All you've seen is kind of how his lackeys work and his pictures everywhere. And the first time you run into him, he's in a robe and a fucking coward. With his stacks of money, hoping he can like buy his way out of this moment, and finally, it's just such a let's throw back the curtain and the wizard is nobody kind of maneuver that I really dug about it. And then and of course the end for me works because of Walken's performance, because it's like we brought this guy in, he's going to take over, and Walken's basically like, well, now you got to start over kind of thing. And
You're
so
late.
Yeah, late. Yeah, and so there's that whole bit. Walken's performance, I really dig Walken's performance throughout it. And there's that one scene where you get to see future Christopher Walken, which is he's giving the speech to everybody on the boat. And he really kind of wigs out in his, so we're going to go in there. He's really just like getting in your face about that stuff. He's like, you don't get paid if you die and all that shit.
Maybe this little dance will help convince you.
Yeah. He really just unleashes all of his inner Walken in that moment. And that was a bit that I almost wanted to capture that and put it up on YouTube just so I could show that scene, because it's such a departure from the way he's been acting all the way through it. But now I have not read Dogs of War. I've read a couple other Frederick Forsyth books. And Forsyth versus like Jean Le Carré, who both do kind of espionage, spy, spy stuff. Or even like country revolutionary country inner working political stuff. is that Forsyth is very clinical in his writing and is very much it's always about the procedural. You know, he watched the clock until 2 a.m., lit a cigarette before grabbing his holster and stepping outside. Kind of, you know, it's that that. This is the process that's taking place. Whereas Le Carre is much more of an emotional writer and works on the inner character. If you see other Forsyth adaptations like The Fourth Protocol or the great one, Day of the Jackal, which is a fantastic Forsyth adaptation, a brilliant movie all around. It's very much about the process of being, and I liked the whole, where do we buy the guns? How do we get the guns in? This is, you know, that entire step-by-step procedure of this is what's going to take place before shit starts blowing up.
I think the word clinical keeps coming up, and that's probably why I give it as low a score as I did. Because at some level I felt like it wanted me to feel connected to this character. I feel that about any character you spend time alone with in a movie, and we spend time alone with Christopher Walken. We're meant to sort of feel intimate with him, but I don't think the movie delivered enough insight into him.
Oh, not at all, no.
To see when that turn comes.
Right.
So it doesn't end up earning its emotional turn, which makes that feel a little more Hollywoody. Like you were sort of gauging by the tone of the film how it was going to end, and once it went into, like, you know, and again I keep using the term Rambo as a shorthand, but once it went into full guys in military garb shooting guns and things exploding mode, you got the sense of where this was going. You didn't feel that sense of jeopardy that would have made that scene more tense.
Yeah.
And
I wasn't that final scene wasn't tense. It was just boom, 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 boom. You know?
Yeah, and if he hadn't done it, if he had let, you know, General Asshole take over for General Asshole and just sort of walked away with his money, that might have been more in keeping with the character. I felt so disconnected. Like I wasn't sure what was going on. I did enjoy the procedural stuff. I do think it tried to have an art house sensibility, and maybe that's why I was trying to connect with the characters more. I felt like I should connect with them more.
I think if they had the art house sensibility, they would have ended it with General Asshole.
Yeah, but I also wonder if this movie suffers from too short a running time. Like if this would be like a 2-hour and 59-minute movie, where you really sort of pack it with those details.
Man, as long as it isn't 3 hours.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's the line.
I like how you're going. I like that angle. I think what's interesting
room to breathe.
Yeah, and it would have been, in a longer sense, it would have been really interesting because then you could have learned about the rest of his team and what their exterior worlds are like as well, and why they do what they do, and they could each have their own motivation. I'm one of the things I'm kind of fascinated also about this movie. This film is 1980, so it's just before the Schwarzenegger, Chuck Norris takeover, you know, Stallone takeover of action cinema that really kind of alters and changes the way
Christopher Walken
action movies are going. No, I'm not saying it could have been Christopher Walken. I'm simply saying that this is like the end of the new Hollywood, and the blockbuster Hollywood is starting to take over. So it's like where you know, Warren describes it as an art house film. To me, it's almost like the end of that era of that type of action. Because if you look at something like The French Connection, which is considered an action film, you know, it's a movie that only has really, you know, one key action scene and a couple shootouts and stuff like that. But it's not. But again, it's much more character-based. It's much more procedural. It's about watching people do their job. Bullet is very much the same way. You know, I mean, these aren't movies that are about, you know, action. Whereas soon afterwards, you're going to have your Delta forces, and, like, you know, Canon Films comes in and starts wiping the floor with all the Invasion USAs and all the other crap like that. And so this is almost like, I'm curious, kind of, to me, it's almost like the end of an era, and I don't know how many other action films. Of course, there are action films after this one. Although the first Rambo has a lot more. First Blood has a lot more survival stuff, so it kind of has that tension and pacing to it. But this almost feels like the end of an era of a certain type of action film to it versus.
First Blood also has a British director, right? Isn't Ted Kotcheff a British director?
John Irvin, yeah. And it's very much a British movie. I mean, it has a very British sensibility about it. And that's, I think, probably part of what I really like about it is that it's not just your typical action film. And what I love the opening sequence as well as Shu does. Although my favorite visual about that is when the plane is taking off and the mortar shells are exploding off in the distance near it, and it's just like these cool little just.
That's the anti-aircraft.
Yeah, no, all the action was beautiful.
Yeah, that's why it was so well shot. Who shot it again?
Jack Cardiff.
Yeah, I knew that.
Yeah, it's a so there's a lot of stuff, and like I feel that had they been able to extend the British reporters connection with Walken a little better, had they that would have made to me the turn feel a little more solid, because they have a couple really great discussions, one in Africa and one in back in New York.
Yeah.
About about the way politics works and their job and each of their kind of jobs, or at least the reporter's job within it, and Walken able to kind of relate what and how he does what he does to what and how this reporter does.
I thought they were in London.
Well, that were there. Yeah, you're right. They're in London at that point in time.
They were in
right.
London.
Yeah, there's kind of a lot of country hopping going on here because there's
a lot of country hopping.
It's international.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but it's funny because they are country hopping. But it's not completely clear. Like you have to kind of stop and think. Wait, is he in? Okay, one guy went to France and one guy went to Italy. Like they were going all over the place. They were going to meet in Gibraltar or something like that.
And what's kind of cool about that too is they never kind of overstate it by going Eiffel Tower, or the Colosseum. It's always shitty back dingy corners that they probably could have.
How do you like living in London now?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's where most of the tension was anyway. I mean, most of the tension was in the process.
Yes.
That, like I said, the end, the final battle scene, to me, there really was no tension.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe for a second, maybe I'm like, oh, did he shoot the girl? Oh, no, wait, that's here. It's like that's about it.
So there's. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Dub.
Well, I was going to say, so in terms of length, think about if this storyline had something like a television season to work itself out. Where there's the episode where he's tortured, there's the episode where he comes back and you physically see him recover, you see more about the relationship with his wife. What you see is someone sort of PTSD about war,
right?
Trying to put his life back together and unable to do it, and you see the sort of character flaw of him falling back into, okay, I'll do it. I'll take on this country and I'll organize your coup. But at the end, you see what this attempt at having a normal life did to him, which is to make him recognize that general asshole isn't there.
Right.
Like some adjustment, some parallel to what you see in the opening beyond just the frenetic pace of the action.
Right. Now, I really liked the guy that plays the doctor. Because
what has he been in?
I don't know. I'm not sure. Yeah, because
I IMDb'd him and I didn't recognize anything, but I was like, I know I've seen this guy in something.
Yeah, he's got one of those faces.
The president, the guy who became president.
No.
Yeah.
The doctor the doctor helps him when he's being held prisoner.
Dr. Okoye.
Yeah, and you.
No, not. Oh, yeah.
So while Walken's being held prisoner just after he's been tortured, the doctor's there and he's like, "Well, I was the third dude on the bill to be elected." And then at the end when he shows up, I think what's really interesting is he was so good in
from that to Gandhi.
Is that where he was from? He was in that as well. He played Gandhi.
Yeah.
He was in The Wild Geese, which is another film that's similar to this.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. But his scene is so good and he's so natural, and the way he plays off of Walken is so great in that one scene that when you see him in the chair at the end, for me, I was like, all right, cool, I like this guy. Let's put him in charge. Thank God.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
the thing is, I knew that's kind of where it was going. Like I was hoping he would let it happen and he would walk away with his money and maybe give it all to that kid in New York or do whatever it is. But it sort of played out. Like in the end, it became Hollywood again.
Yeah.
Like there was nothing different about it.
No, you're right. For a film that feels very kind of going against the grain of what a typical action film is supposed to be today, it really does twist at the end and go, okay, never mind, we're going to give you kind of what you want and what you need.
What I did like about the movie is that there was way too many shots of them pulling back the firing pin of that hand cannon that they would walk around with. Like every time they picked it up, somebody had to pull it. It was like a really like 10 seconds.
Right.
Yeah, they were fiddling with guns constantly, and I liked, like you said, it didn't have the sort of Rambo, which was established, a little bit later, the sort of series of close-ups of guns but it had guns cocking, and it had people shooting guns a lot. I liked the practice scenes off the boat. I liked all the gunplay.
Well, it doesn't fetishize weapons.
No.
The weapons are tools.
Right, and it shows them as tools versus fetishizing them. Yet at the same time, almost using kind of some of the same shot structure.
Yeah.
Which I thought was pretty fascinating.
I think he's wrapped in the butcher paper.
Yeah.
Keep them clean. You keep them dry, and then the oil that way. The oil stays that way.
But yeah, that's right. The whole oil drum sequence. I also love how they have like their list of brokers they need to call in each country. They're like, let's go with so and so. And that guy doesn't work out. We'll go with this dude. It's like you can't find it at Walmart. We're going to Target. And it's just that again, it's that inner working of that business that's really kind of cool and makes it very different versus the like an Expendables movie or anything else, or even like a Mission Impossible film. It's just like, don't worry, we've got the sidecar over here full of stuff.
We happen to have all the guns.
Plane full of magic science.
Exactly. Yeah. But yeah, I'm trying to think of other stuff that I really dig about this movie. I don't know, and I think for me, I think it's just the fact that you're right. It is a relic to some extent of a bygone era that will never. This is not a movie that's ever going to be rediscovered, or people are going to. I'm doing this way too much. It's not a movie that's going to be rediscovered by people or kind of reanalyzed and praised as something fantastic. It is what it is, and to some extent, I kind of like that because of it. If that makes any sense. It's just kind of a piece of an odd British action film during a very bizarre shift in the Hollywood structure.
It's a good snapshot of the era.
Yeah,
I think.
It's a bridge.
It's a bridge. Yeah, it's a bridge piece. It very much kind of feels to me like a bridge piece in an odd way. And again, and I like Christopher Walken, and it's odd to think of, and you're right, Christopher Walken becoming an action hero was never going to happen. Also, it is during that weird time, and this happens a lot. I mean, it's, I don't know if you ever buy in any of the Chuck Norris films or anything like that, if they are trained at what they do, because I'm not sure when, I don't know what Michael Mann era clicked in when they were like, okay, no, you hold guns like this, this is the type of thing you have to do, to make yourself look like a professional. But yeah, at the time, it was just
oddly enough, Santo, you and I know somebody who is related to the person in Prescott who trained Michael Mann and trained the people around Michael Mann, including James Caan, on how to hold guns in Thief and how to structure all of that.
Right.
So it's coincidental that you happen to mention Michael Mann, because that's a very accurate interpretation of where, at least in that vein of cinema, there was a little bit more legitimacy on how guns are supposed to be handled in films. And a lot of these, a lot of the other offshoots, I think Warren's right. In Dogs of War, you're watching Walken and a bunch of actors acting like a bunch of actors carrying guns around.
Right.
It was mostly Walken. It was mostly Walken when he was running. I mean, when he was running, it was like, oh, come on.
Yeah,
and
there's that scene where he's doing a light jog across the compound.
It was more. It just felt like this nerd running. I mean, I wanted to scream, nerd! He was like the most unathletic kid in school, which is weird because he's a dancer, and I know that's very hard. He's very athletic.
But once you get around to, Stallone and Schwarzenegger and, Norris or, some of the others, where the action scenes get larger and the guns get bigger and the shooting gets more involved, obviously there's a cartoonish aspect that goes to that as well. But Michael Mann was a guy who spent a lot of time trying to make dramatic Hollywood-esque shootout sequences at least have some sort of visual validity.
Right.
Well, I would be willing to bet Michael Mann is a huge fan of this movie. And it's funny we're talking about Heat because it's structured very similarly in terms of how you motivate these characters and how you follow them through the sort of day-to-day workings of doing what it is that they try to do. Only Heat spends or tries to turn up the Sorry. He spends a lot of time trying to raise the stakes for the characters emotionally, which gives the final sequence a little more weight and a little more worry.
Right.
Like you're not 100% sure who's going to live. You're not 100% sure if they're going to pull it off. One or more people could die. You know, everybody's life is in jeopardy, and you feel it, and you know the consequences of that.
Right.
I wonder if this movie, like I said, with a little more time, could have done that, so that I'm not going, oh no, mustache guy.
Right.
You're really invested in these
Poor
characters.
acting Tom Berenger.
Like
Yeah,
one of them had
There
a
wasn't enough Tom Berenger. There was
one
no
of them had a pregnant wife, and he brings her up, and you go, oh, he's got a pregnant wife, he's totally going to be dead, and then he says, yeah, but I can't stand to stick around here and watch her get fat, or like something harsh like that.
Right.
And then you're like, no, don't care about this guy.
And that's
like everything they do to try and get, almost connect you, and then it doesn't, oh, Ed O'Neill really cares about his brother and sister. That's going to be tough if he goes. Oh, he's not going. Okay,
Yeah.
well, that's fine.
Well, and I think that's what I think some of that though is what exactly plays into this is that I don't think you're supposed to give a shit about these guys, or at least not be emotionally invested if they die or you care about them. Now, Shu, something you brought up actually.
That's what makes Heat a better movie.
No, I agree. Oh, I agree. I think I what this film was, the way this film was dealing with that and trying to not, I think the only character you were supposed to become somewhat emotionally involved with was Walken, but that didn't succeed completely.
And there in Santo, before you continue, becomes the balancing act toward the end, where he actually, where you have this utopian finality, and maybe as a result of it, it isn't as strong as it could be,
right?
Precisely because it underplays all of what Walken is up to that point.
Yeah.
Right.
Whereas Thief, for instance, using a Michael Mann comparison, Thief does an excellent job of having you give a shit about James Caan.
Right.
Heat and Heat does a very good job of making you involved in a lot of the other characters and how they are progressing and how this is ultimately going to turn out. 'Cause you have a feeling it's not going to turn out particularly well for a lot or most of them. But you're kind of invested in what they're doing. So when Walken does, I guess, what you would perceive as being the right thing or the moral thing, do you get that kind of emotional payoff at the end?
No.
I don't necessarily think so.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're watching Thief as a movie of comparison that came out at roughly the same time,
Yep.
that has many of there's enough of a similar feeling between the two and between the eras where maybe you can make some parallel, but you give a shit more about James Caan than you ultimately do about Christopher Walken doing the right thing at the end.
Sure, completely. Yeah. But we've also though part of, and I don't want to get into a Thief conversation, but with Caan's character, it is about a guy trying to go straight. So you're seeing somebody trying to morally do the right thing, whereas Walken the entire time is morally doing the wrong thing and continually states that he knows he is and he doesn't give a shit about it. But what I want to mention really quick, Shu, is we talked very briefly about this, and I'm guessing, oh good, we had one viewer, but they're gone now. So I'm guessing that may have, okay, great, excellent, brilliant. So there's no way to say spoilers.
I had to refresh.
Spoilers, crazy weird spoilers though, at this moment. The death of Tom Berenger. The Wild Bunch moment death of Tom Berenger.
Yeah.
Where he he busts in, he sees the woman with the kids, and doesn't, and makes, and it's not a turns his back as much as he makes the moral decision not to do anything.
Right.
Yeah, right, and that's what gets him killed. And then Walken does the same exact thing, has that moment where he can kill the girlfriend, the dictator's girlfriend, who he spent a good 5-10 minute scene with.
Yeah, that was a hell of a walk.
Earlier on, yeah, it was a long walk. Well, I mean, they did dinner, they did all kinds of stuff. And actually, well, I'd like to his guide, by the way, when he goes out to take photos, his weird, creepy guide. That was a bizarre scene. But I also liked I liked that whole sequence because I liked the way he reconned, and was trying to, I like it.
I also sorry to interject, John, because I know where you're going.
Yeah.
That scene I enjoyed as well because it was relatively unpredictable.
Mm-hmm.
Because we went into it. I suspect if it had been a while since all of us had seen that film or hadn't seen it at all, and we didn't remember that the torture scene was in the middle of the film, we were going to watch this as a almost boring, predictable recon scene where she sets up in a certain position and he takes a photo and uses it to his advantage.
Right.
But instead, they were on to him as well, and it's what ultimately got him caught.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I thought that was kind of interesting in that it wasn't what I expected, and he ultimately wasn't good enough in his recon to get away with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and the thing, and I'm still trying to figure out why he went in, why he Conan'd up with the black makeup and everything else like that to go into the compound at night, other than I guess to kind of get the lay of the land, because it doesn't work. First off, I mean, he gets in there, he's instantly caught, and gets himself out of it. But then he doesn't hang out either. You know, it's like he completely failed at that portion of his mission. And who was the captain, by the way? The guy that comes in. Oh, and Walken does have the great scene where the police captain comes in. And he's like, so the dictator loves Kookaburra. What's the technical name of it? And then Walken's like, fuck y'all, and starts to walk away. He's like, no, just for you. Here comes the performance. And he does the whole, Ectilius tacticus spectacular. And it was, it's just, and he just starts rattling off this stuff. But it's, and then it's another goofy Walken scene. But I want to know who played the captain, because he's very familiar looking, and I've seen him in other stuff, and I can't think of what his name is really quick. The captain who, basically the captain who, is that his name? The second in command. He basically he's the one that comes into the bar, questions Christopher Walken, tortures him somewhat, or tortures him, and then at the end, when Walken busts into the compound, you have kind of the revenge moment when Walken finally gets to shoot and kill him, just before taking out the dictator of the land. But yeah, he's a dude who I've seen in plenty of other things, and I have no idea what else he's from.
If it's Zangaran officer, his name is Hugh Horshey.
Hugh Jass.
Yeah, my guess is that's not him.
I'm Hugh Jass.
While you guys are looking at him, there was I think Santa. One of the things you were discussing here was the inconsistency between two female characters there, and the way that two guys approached the two female characters, but they didn't have the same. It didn't have the same response. It wasn't like somehow we're supposed to learn. It was a very they were very random moments. It was almost an excuse to get Tom Berenger killed, and then yet we've sort of painted ourselves in a corner now because we're doing exactly the same thing with Walken, but he approaches it differently, yet somehow he knows that instinctively he's not going to get shot in the same sort of sequence, even though the woman in that room has every opportunity conceivably to do exactly to Walken what the mother did to Berenger.
Right.
So it has its share of odd sort of quirks that don't necessarily add up in the midst of this scene as you're trying to figure out exactly what it is that's ultimately getting these guys killed. I think with Berenger, you could argue that maybe there's kind of a fatalistic, you have to be on top of your game at all time, and war is unpredictable kind of mentality. If you let your guard down, then you might get killed. But then Walken shows mercy as well, and it doesn't affect him in the least.
Right, but I think for me that also, I think the nice thing about watching the Tom Berenger scene first was when he lowers his gun on her, that creates this tension for me of, oh shit, is she going to kill him now? So so there's that nice little moment of, because had he just walked in, had the Berenger scene not taken place, and Walken just let her go, I don't think that tension for me would have existed, because we've already seen that she's a nice person. We've been told by other people that she's a good person, that even though she's she's stuck banging the dictator, the herpes don't go away.
At that point in the film, I felt like it had stopped being motivated by anything other than action movie inertia.
Right.
Someone we know had to die, but they couldn't have died being a real bad person. So maybe we show him dying, showing mercy. And then, of course, our main star isn't going to die. And then of course he's going to do the right thing and put the right guy on the throne.
Right. Yeah. No, it becomes very much a movie at that point in time. I agree.
I wonder when he made the decision as a character to do this.
That's why I said there was holes in it, or I felt.
Yeah, and for me, I think that decision took place when the British reporter was killed. I think his whole plan from the point the British reporter was killed, and he knows that, and because it's not about him getting screwed over. I don't think he can. It's the dude on the phone, which was another weird scene. The CIA or FBI guy, CIA dude, is on the phone, and the connection's bad, so he has to yell all of his dialogue. Where we learn. Was it oil or gold?
Company. He wasn't involved in any government at all.
No, he wasn't. I thought he was like CIA or something like that.
No.
Did they ever?
He just
It was a corporate. It was corporate in.
Yeah.
Okay, so it was all corporate interests, and what was the? I forget. What was the? It's been over a week. What was the project again? It wasn't oil. It was a gold or oil.
Platinum.
Oh, it was platinum. Okay, well, platinum's important. So yeah, so that whole bit was really bizarre. Where it's because it's like if Walken is like, I was waiting for them to like see, so you could see like Walken standing on the other side of the window or something listening.
Super awkward.
Yeah, because it would be so easy where this guy's just screaming, "Don't worry, the platinum, it will all be ours." Wah ha ha.
And the guy's just upstairs. He's an idiot who can't even read.
Yeah. It's like he's at the dinner table in the other room.
Yeah, that was
like Homer holding the phone for Mr. Burns.
Yeah.
That was an awkward scene too. When the soon-to-be president was there flirting with all the women. I was like, wait, isn't that their girlfriends and/or wives?
Right.
Like, I'm gonna get a three-way with them, like in front. I was like, this is a weird scene.
Yeah, well, anything for platinum at the end of the day.
I don't know if I'm supposed to dislike this guy or if it's the 70s. Imagine that was a common dinner party conversation.
What we didn't notice was in the framing off to the side was just a fishbowl with all their keys in it.
Yeah, exactly.
It was cut for time.
Yeah,
we had the fishbowl.
Because it was really implied. It was the 70s, so they figured, you know what, we're showing too much. Everybody knows.
Right. You don't have to say it.
If this movie had been 2 hours 59 minutes long, imagine where you would have gone with that sequence.
Yeah, that's why Victoria Tennant actually had a much larger role in the uncut version. That we could see. So I think we can pretty much wrap it up there. Okay, now it's interesting because of course I think we all see the issues. I mean, it's we all see that there are problems with this film and there are pluses with this movie. Yet we all kind of want to give it different scores. And I guess that's on the degree, I guess, of the minuses were too much for us to take versus the pluses, or vice versa. Would you recommend this movie? What type of person, or would you recommend this movie for people to watch? Dub, really quick.
It would certainly depend on the person. If they seem to be interested in
your father, would your dad like it?
Yes, actually, my dad might like this movie.
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna call your dad right now.
I don't think he has Netflix. Otherwise, I'd recommend it.
Yeah. T.
I think film buffs in general, people who enjoy the 70s cinema and are interested in seeing that stylistic transition from the 70s to the 80s, and anybody who's a Walken fan.
Yeah.
Definitely for Walken completists.
Yeah.
Shu.
I think that's fair. There are other movies kind of in the 70s conspiracy genre that have the same sort of pacing that I'd probably recommend first for a specific audience who wanted to fill out their cinema palette a little bit. But absolutely, it is not. If there was somebody I knew where that movie fell under some sort of quotient, as Tremendo and Dub said, yeah, absolutely, I would include that as one that would be worth their time to check out.
All right, Warren.
I think my dad would hate this movie.
Oh.
No, I'm just kidding. Oh. I think you would like it too. I think this is. This is I mean, this kind of movie is like an acquired taste. I think I wouldn't recommend it to somebody who's like in their 20s or a teenager or something like that, because I think they'd just be bored. I think they've been sort of infected by kind of more modern movie making. Yeah, definitely it would be somebody who.
Unless that kid was a student of film.
Yeah, unless they're a student of film, unless there's somebody who's into that. I mean. But yeah, so it usually has to be somebody who's into film, because I don't think that it would meet certain standards that today's Hollywood has created in people for movies, which is too bad. I think I think that they're missing out on this kind of stuff.
Yeah, I believe I think if you're into the inner workings, if you want to see a movie about the inner workings of being a mercenary versus just the expendable style, you've got a job to do. Cut to them with everything in place, ready to get for a big gunfight.
Right.
This definitely has something that a little more meat on the bone, I guess, when it comes to the procedural and it's weird to think of a procedural action film, but that's definitely kind of what this falls under. But yeah, anyways, I really dig this flick. I think if you're into movies and you want to see something a little different, especially if you're an action buff and you want to give something, you kind of want to expand the palette a little bit and give something else a try, I say definitely check it out. The opening scene itself, if you're not going to watch anything else, at least watch the opening scene until they fly out of there, because it's a really well executed sequence.
Yeah.
And
Santo,
then,
Hey, Santo, a couple of similar films.
Yeah.
Wild Geese, which we mentioned earlier.
Right.
And Siege of Firebase Gloria.
Yeah, Shu had mentioned that. That's a what's his face that directed.
That's a
it,
Trenchard
right?
Smith film.
Smith, yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
Trenchard Smith, which I've never seen. I need to check
That
one out.
one is significant. That one's got a share of difference. There are portions of it that I felt had the same kind of look, but the action in Firebase Gloria is much more intense, much more crazy. There's a lot more of it, and it feels to me more like Filipino action films from that general area than it does what we're categorizing as sort of a procedural action movie prior to the expectations that came into play in the more modernized Hollywood version of what action films are now considered. And I think that's something that's kind of a distinction maybe to make too. To me, the action film, the way we construe it, is it more or less started with Raiders of the Lost Ark. And you could toss some other, if you wanted to throw Star Wars in there as an example, okay, I'll listen to that. But generally speaking, it's kind of like Raiders and Raiders On. There's a lot of stuff that's smaller budget from the 70s that I almost consider different kind of genre films, but I don't really consider them action films. I consider them a detective movie, a crime movie, a mercenary movie, a war movie with action sequences.
Sure.
And to me, there's a difference there.
You know what? I really like this idea. Next week, I'll tell you what. If everybody wants to come in with a whatever the choice for next week's film is, I think we can bring in a other titles that kind of around that same era or whatever that kind of fall within the same vein of it, so we could suggest those as well or not suggest those, or kind of put them on do a little sliding scale, and we'll see how that plays out. Just out of curiosity. So next week, though, so that was my choice. Dogs of War, mixed results. That's fine. I think that's the way it should go. Although whatever, don't like it. I don't care. No problem.
I feel like most people liked it though.
No. Actually, no. I agree. I think probably. I think I can definitely see that the faults of the film can definitely pull you out and weaken and does weaken the structure of the movie, wholeheartedly. It's definitely one of those things it does. But if you're willing to kind of overlook some of those things, yeah, it easily could have been. I don't want to say it easily could have been fixed, but hindsight being 20/20, you can see where this thing went wrong and what really could have made it a strong film. It could easily be remade, and I think that, it could become an excellent remake, especially in today's atmosphere.
And it feels generic enough in a lot of ways, at least at this point in history. It feels generic enough so as to hew pretty close to the original story while changing all the names, and you probably wouldn't get popped with copyright.
No,
you wouldn't even know. It would just be an unusual action film.
Yeah,
Christopher Walken might notice, but
it's he's got the poster up in his bedroom still. So, Dub, what is you're suggesting our film for next week? What is your choice?
My choice is going to be Mad Max.
Interesting. Okay.
I probably haven't seen it in. I haven't seen it in so long. I barely remember it. Let me put it that way.
All right, put it that way.
I noticed recently it was streaming, and the remake is coming out. I know the Road Warrior pretty well, and I know
it's not a remake; it's a sequel.
Yeah,
it's a sequel. And I was going to say I know the Road Warrior pretty well, and I know Beyond Thunderdome well enough so that when my youngest goes around on my shoulders, I sometimes have him yell out, "Who runs Bartertown?"
Nice. Right.
So I'm familiar with the series, except this first one. I don't know what it is that it never re-popped up on my radar the way the others have over the years. So I'd like to sit down and see it again. When was the last time you all saw it?
I probably watch it. I probably watch it once a year, maybe. Yeah, well, I think I've maybe declared this on the show before. The Mad Max movies, to me, have a more personal thing for me now and for a long time than Star Wars did, and so it's the franchise that I hold very dear to my heart, because the Road Warrior is easily probably in my top 10 movies of all time. It's a stunning achievement on every level, and I love all three of them. I even stand up for Thunderdome. I think it actually went where it was supposed to go.
You're the guy who stands up for Thunderdome.
I'm the guy. Yeah, it's totally me. It's totally me.
Just get beyond Thunderdome.
You just need you don't need another hero. You just need one supporter.
Just beyond Thunderdome is Rangoon, and
what's beyond Rangoon? It's beyond the Valley of the Dolls.
Right, that's right after Rangoon.
Yeah,
it's tough geography to get past.
That's right.
It's a tough road to travel down.
So, anyways, yeah. So next week we will look at the original Mad Max. 1979? George Miller, I think. Is that yes? Wow. So and it's interesting because it'll be kind of fascinating to see in the action realm. I'm going to cut my fingers off. In the action realm, how I'm going to cut my fingers off. In the action realm, it kind of this is another movie that kind of skews more towards the Dogs of War in the way that there's not a ton of action sequences. Only it's much more character based, and I wouldn't say it's slow moving, but it's definitely plotted. But anyways, cool. So we'll so next week we will be watching, or before next week we'll be watching Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome, or Mad Max Beyond. Yeah, we'll be watching the original Mad Max. So watch it. If you watch this video and want to join us next Friday at 9 p.m. live here on YouTube, we will be discussing it, and you can join us in the little hangout area and send out your comments and let us know what you think of the movie, or ridicule us, because that's well worth what the internet is about. So do that. So really quick, Dub, where can people find you?
You can find me at Film Geek Dub.
All right, T?
At El Tremendo on Twitter and El Tremendo on Facebook.
Shu?
Shuniverse. SCHU-niverse.
Warren?
At Warren Graff.
And, of course, you can find me at John Santo on Twitter. And Shu, play us out. All right, folks, cry havoc and cut loose the Dogs of War. We'll see you next week.